Welcome back, friends. Let's start the first part of new episode. Kindly support my channel. Let's start. The courtroom seemed smaller than it had only moments before. Every eye in the room followed Kody Brown as he rose from his chair and walked toward the witness stand. The wooden floor echoed beneath his shoes. Reporters paused their typing. Spectators leaned forward. Even the judge watched him carefully. Kody swallowed hard. For years, he had been the center of attention. Cameras had followed him. Interviews had celebrated him. His voice had carried authority within his family. Now that same attention felt suffocating. The courtroom clerk administered the oath, and Kody took his seat. His attorney offered an encouraging nod before returning to counsel's table. "State your name for the record," the judge instructed. "Kody Brown." His voice sounded weaker than he intended. The attorney representing Christine, Janelle, and Meri stood slowly. She approached the witness stand carrying a thick binder filled with documents, bank statements, emails, and financial records. The binder landed on the podium with a heavy thud. The sound alone seemed to make Kody flinch. "Mr. Brown," the attorney began calmly, "you've testified that every financial decision you made was intended to benefit your family. Is that correct?" "Yes." "And you maintain that position today?" "I do." The attorney nodded. Then she opened the binder. "Let's discuss Exhibit 42. A projector illuminated the courtroom wall. An image appeared, an electronic transfer record dated 4 years earlier. The amount was substantial, $48,000. The account receiving the funds carried a name unfamiliar to most people in the courtroom. KB Holdings. The attorney turned toward Kody. "Did you authorize this transfer?" Kody hesitated. His lawyer shifted uncomfortably. "Yes." The answer barely escaped his lips. "And who owned KB Holdings?" Kody cleared his throat. "I did." A ripple of whispers spread through the gallery. The judge immediately banged her gavel. "Order." The room quieted. The attorney continued. "Was this account disclosed to Christine Brown?" "No." "Janelle Brown?" "No." "Meri Brown?" "No." Each answer struck like a hammer. The attorney took another document from the binder. "What was the purpose of the transfer?" "It was an investment." "What kind of investment?" Kody hesitated again. The silence stretched. Finally he said, "Property." "Which property?" "I don't remember." The attorney raised an eyebrow. "You don't remember what property justified a $48,000 transfer?" Kody's face reddened. "It was years ago." The attorney walked closer. "Convenient." His lawyer immediately objected. "Argumentative." "Sustained," the judge replied. The attorney nodded and changed direction. "Mr. Brown, can you produce any documentation proving this transfer benefited the family?" "No." The answer hung in the air. Christine stared at the table in front of her. Janelle's jaw tightened. Meri slowly closed her eyes. The attorney moved to another exhibit. A series of email exchanges appeared on the screen. Messages discussing transfers. Wire instructions. Requests for secrecy. Several contained language the forensic accountant had already described as suspicious. The attorney pointed toward one highlighted line. "Move the funds before anyone notices." She looked directly at Kody. "Did you write this email?" Kody stared at the screen. The words felt foreign now. Yet there they were. Documented. Timestamped. Verified. "Yes." The room erupted. The judge slammed her gavel repeatedly. "Order. Order in this courtroom." The noise gradually subsided. The attorney allowed the silence to settle before speaking again. "What exactly did you mean by before anyone notices?" Kody rubbed his forehead. "It wasn't what it sounds like." A few spectators laughed. The judge immediately silenced them. "What did it mean then?" the attorney asked. "It meant I didn't want everyone worrying." "Worrying about what?" "The money." "So you intentionally concealed financial activity from your wives?" "No." "But you didn't tell them." "I planned to." "When?" Kody had no answer. The attorney returned to counsel table, retrieved another folder, and approached the witness stand again. This time she held several pages covered in signatures. "Do you recognize these documents?" Kody glanced at them. "Yes." "These concern ownership changes involving Coyote Pass?" "Yes." And these signatures belong to Meri Brown? Yes. The attorney turned toward Meri. Meri testified she believed she was signing administrative paperwork. Kody shifted in his seat. Did you explain that these documents significantly reduced her ownership rights? His silence was answer enough. The attorney pressed. Did you? No. Meri's eyes filled with tears. For years, she had wondered whether she had misunderstood what happened. Now the answer stood only a few feet away. The attorney continued. Why didn't you explain it? I thought it was best. For whom? Kody opened his mouth. Nothing came out. The attorney returned to her table. For several moments, she shuffled papers while the courtroom remained completely silent. Then she produced something entirely unexpected. A photograph. She handed it to the clerk, who displayed it on the courtroom monitor. Kody's face instantly drained of color. The image showed him entering a bank branch late one evening. The date matched several disputed transactions. Christine's attorney spoke softly. Mr. Brown, this photo was obtained through subpoenaed security footage. Kody stared at the screen. What were you doing at the bank? Making a deposit. Of how much? I don't remember. The attorney immediately displayed a corresponding deposit slip. $25,000. Cash. The gallery erupted again. The judge's patience visibly thinned. One more interruption and I will clear this courtroom. Silence returned. The attorney continued. Can you explain where this cash originated? It was mine. Documented where? It was savings. From which account? Kody shifted again. I don't know. The attorney slowly closed the folder. Your Honor, the witness claims ownership of funds he cannot trace, transferred into accounts he concealed, using entities never disclosed to his family. She paused. Those facts speak for themselves. Kody's attorney rose immediately. Permission to redirect. The judge nodded. He approached carefully. Unlike the aggressive questioning from earlier, his tone was gentle. Mr. Brown, would you describe your role in supporting this family over the years? Kody exhaled. Finally, a question he wanted to answer. He spoke about decades of responsibility, about balancing multiple households, about providing food, housing, transportation, and opportunities for dozens of family members. As he talked, some of his confidence returned. He described sacrifices, missed opportunities, financial pressures, the burden of carrying everyone's expectations. For a brief moment, the courtroom saw not a defendant, but a man overwhelmed by impossible circumstances. Yet the sympathy didn't last, because every statement raised another question. If everything had been done for the family, why had so much remained hidden? Why were there undisclosed accounts? Why were ownership changes never explained? Why were transfers routed through entities no one else knew existed? The questions lingered long after Kody stopped speaking. The judge called for a short recess. Immediately, the courtroom exploded into activity. Reporters rushed for exits. Lawyers gathered in tense circles. Court officers moved quickly through the crowd. Outside, television crews delivered live updates beneath gathering storm clouds. The story had become far larger than anyone anticipated. And unknown to everyone in the building, an even bigger revelation was about to arrive. Back inside, Christine stood near a window overlooking the courthouse courtyard. Her hands trembled slightly. Janelle joined her. Neither spoke for several moments. Finally, Janelle broke the silence. Did you ever think we'd actually get here? Christine stared out the glass. No. Meri approached quietly. For years they had stood apart. Different loyalties, different hurts, different versions of the same story. Today they stood together. Not because they agreed on everything, but because they finally agreed on one thing. The truth mattered. Before any of them could say another word, a court clerk appeared. She carried a sealed envelope. Ms. Green. Christine's attorney stepped forward. The clerk handed over the package. It arrived from a confidential witness. The attorney frowned. Who sent it? They refused to identify themselves. The envelope felt unusually heavy. Everyone exchanged nervous looks. The attorney carefully opened it. Inside was a flash drive and a handwritten note. The message contained only 6 words. You haven't seen the worst yet. The attorney's expression changed immediately. Whatever was on that drive had her attention. And judging by her face, it wasn't good for Kody Brown. The handwritten note seemed to drain the color from everyone's faces. You haven't seen the worst yet. For several moments, nobody spoke. Christine's attorney stared at the flash drive resting in her palm as though it might explode. Around her, Christine, Janelle, and Meri exchanged uncertain glances. Who sent it? Janelle finally asked. The clerk shook her head. No return address. No name. It was delivered by courier less than 10 minutes ago. The attorney slipped the drive into her pocket. We'll have our investigator review it immediately. Christine's stomach tightened. Throughout the trial, every new piece of evidence had revealed another hidden layer. Another secret. Another financial trail. Yet something about this felt different. More serious. More dangerous. The judge's bailiff appeared at the end of the hallway. Court reconvenes in 15 minutes. The break was over. Inside Courtroom 2B, spectators quickly returned to their seats. News of the morning's testimony had spread through Flagstaff like wildfire. Every available seat was occupied. Additional reporters lined the walls. Several legal analysts from national news networks had arrived as well. The case was becoming a sensation. When Judge Harrison entered, the room immediately rose. Be seated. Everyone complied. The judge reviewed several papers before looking toward Christine's attorney. Ms. Green, you indicated before recess that you intended to introduce additional evidence. Yes, Your Honor. Proceed. The attorney stood. For a brief moment, she hesitated. Then she made a decision. Your Honor, immediately prior to recess, our office received new materials from an anonymous source. We request permission to review the evidence before determining its admissibility. Kody's attorney jumped to his feet. Objection. We have no knowledge of this material. The judge nodded. Understood. The court will allow counsel time to review any newly received evidence before consideration. The issue was temporarily postponed. But the damage was already done. Every person in the courtroom was now wondering the same thing. What was on the flash drive? Kody certainly was. He sat rigidly in his chair. His fingers drummed nervously against the armrest. For the first time since the trial began, genuine panic crept into his thoughts. Had someone talked? Had someone saved records? Had an old business associate decided to cooperate? The possibilities churned endlessly through his mind. The judge turned toward the prosecution table. Call your next witness. Christine's attorney stood. The plaintiffs call Mr. Daniel Reeves. A man in his late 50s entered from a side door. Gray-haired. Neatly dressed. Carrying a thick portfolio. Several jurors immediately sat straighter. The witness carried himself with quiet confidence. After being sworn in, he settled into the witness chair. Please state your profession. I am a certified forensic banking investigator. The attorney nodded. How long have you worked in financial investigations? 31 years. And have you previously testified in state and federal courts? More than 100 times. The attorney approached the witness stand. Mr. Reeves, were you asked to examine financial records associated with Kody Brown? Yes. What did you find? The investigator opened his portfolio. The room became silent. Even the reporters stopped typing. I identified multiple patterns consistent with intentional concealment of assets. The words landed heavily. Kody's attorney immediately objected. Conclusion. Overruled, the judge said. The witness may explain. Mr. Reeves adjusted his glasses. Over a period of years, money was repeatedly transferred through layers of accounts. Certain transactions lacked documentation. Others were structured in a manner designed to reduce visibility. The attorney displayed a large financial chart on a courtroom monitor. Gasps spread through the gallery. The diagram resembled a spider web. Lines connected account after account. Transfers flowed through LLCs, trusts, personal accounts, and business entities. Some funds appeared to circle back repeatedly. What does this chart show? The attorney asked. A pattern of movement. Why is that significant? Because legitimate transactions generally have a clear purpose and endpoint. He pointed towards several highlighted sections. These do not. The jurors watched carefully. So, what does it indicate? The investigator paused. It indicates someone wanted the money difficult to trace. A murmur swept across the room. Judge Harrison immediately restored order. Meanwhile, Kody stared at the screen. Every line represented a decision. Every transfer represented a choice. And now the entire picture was being assembled before a jury. The attorney introduced another exhibit. A timeline. Years of financial activity compressed into a single visual presentation. One date stood out immediately. The same month several wives testified they were struggling financially. Medical expenses, college tuition, mortgage concerns. Yet, during that same period, records showed tens of thousands of dollars moving into previously undisclosed accounts. The contradiction was impossible to ignore. Christine lowered her eyes. Janelle folded her arms. Meri stared directly ahead. The investigator continued. In my professional opinion, the pattern is not accidental. Kody's attorney rose. Cross-examination began immediately. Mr. Reeves, are you claiming every transaction was improper? No. So some may have been legitimate. Certainly. Then you cannot state with certainty that fraud occurred. The investigator remained calm. I can state that concealment occurred. The answer struck like a hammer. Several jurors visibly reacted. Kody's attorney ended his questioning quickly. The witness was excused. But the damage remained. Hours later, as the afternoon session neared its conclusion, a court technician quietly approached Christine's attorney. He whispered something into her ear. Her eyes widened. The flash drive. It had finally been reviewed. The attorney immediately requested a sidebar conference. Judge Harrison listened carefully as she explained. The defense attorney's face gradually lost color. Whatever had been discovered was significant. Very significant. After several tense minutes, the judge returned to the bench. The court has reviewed preliminary information concerning newly submitted materials. The room fell silent. Judge Harrison continued. Because of the nature of this evidence, the court will conduct a hearing regarding admissibility tomorrow morning. A reporter practically dropped his notebook. The judge rarely interrupted proceedings for a special evidentiary hearing. Whatever was on that drive was important enough to justify it. Kody felt a knot tighten in his chest. Tomorrow. Less than 24 hours away. The judge looked directly toward both legal teams. Counselors, be prepared. She struck the gavel. Court adjourned. The explosion of activity was immediate. Reporters rushed toward exits. Camera crews scrambled to set up outside. Legal commentators dictated notes into microphones. Across social media, speculation erupted. Anonymous witness. Secret evidence. Special hearing. The trial had suddenly become even more unpredictable. Outside the courthouse, dark clouds gathered above Flagstaff. Thunder rolled faintly across distant mountains. Christine stood on the courthouse steps. The cold wind pulled at her jacket. For the first time in years, she felt something unfamiliar. Hope. Not certainty. Not victory. Hope. Janelle joined her moments later. You think whatever's on that drive is real? Christine looked toward the storm clouds. I don't know. Meri stepped beside them. But somebody risked a lot to send it. None of them noticed a figure standing across the street. Watching. Waiting. A man hidden beneath the awning of an old storefront. As courthouse employees locked the front doors behind them, he pulled a phone from his pocket. His message contained only 3 words. They know now. Seconds later, a reply appeared. Then it's time. The stranger slipped the phone away and disappeared into the crowd. Back at his home, Kody sat alone in darkness. The television played muted coverage of the trial. Every channel carried the same story. Financial records. Witness testimony. Hidden accounts. Questions. Doubts. Accusations. He barely heard any of it. His attention remained fixed on a single thought. The flash drive. Because deep down, beneath the fear and anger and denial, one possibility terrified him more than any other. Someone from his past had finally decided to talk. And if that person walked into the courtroom tomorrow, everything could be over. The storm finally broke over Flagstaff just after midnight. Rain battered rooftops. Lightning illuminated the mountains. And somewhere in the darkness, a witness prepared to reveal a secret capable of changing the entire case. Morning would come soon. And when it did, nothing would ever be the same. The storm lingered over Flagstaff through most of the night. Rain hammered rooftops and streamed down dark windows while the city slept. Inside homes, apartments, and hotel rooms, people discussed only one topic: the Brown trial. Television stations replayed courtroom footage. Social media overflowed with theories. Legal analysts debated what could possibly be important enough to force a special evidentiary hearing. But no one was more awake than Kody Brown. He sat alone in his living room long after midnight, staring at the muted television screen. The flash drive haunted him. Every possibility felt worse than the last. Had an accountant kept copies of records? Had a former associate decided to cooperate? Had someone from years ago finally decided to tell their story? By 3 a.m, exhaustion weighed heavily on him, but sleep never came. Instead, he watched darkness slowly give way to dawn. Across town, Christine wasn't sleeping either. She sat at her kitchen table with a cup of coffee growing cold beside her. Stacks of documents surrounded her. Bank records, property filings, old emails, evidence that had taken years to uncover. Yet despite everything she had learned, she couldn't shake the feeling that there were still missing pieces. The anonymous flash drive felt like one of those missing pieces. A puzzle piece hidden for years. A truth waiting to be uncovered. At exactly 6:18 a.m, her phone buzzed. A message from her attorney. "Be at court early. You're going to want to hear this." Christine's pulse quickened. No further explanation followed. Only silence. The courthouse parking lot was already crowded when proceedings resumed later that morning. News vans lined the streets. Satellite dishes pointed toward the sky. Reporters spoke rapidly into cameras despite the cold. The atmosphere felt entirely different from previous days. Everyone sensed something important was about to happen. Inside Courtroom 2B, every seat was occupied. Even standing room had disappeared. The gallery buzzed with whispers until the bailiff called for order. "All rise." Judge Harrison entered. Her expression was serious. More serious than anyone had seen before. She took her seat and immediately addressed the room. "We are here to determine the admissibility of newly submitted evidence." Silence fell. Every eye shifted toward Christine's attorney. Ms. Green stood. "Your Honor, the material submitted anonymously contains digital records, emails, financial ledgers, and audio recordings directly relevant to this case." A murmur swept through the room. "Audio recordings. That was new." Judge Harrison nodded. "Proceed." The courtroom technician connected a laptop to the evidence monitor. Several files appeared on screen. Folders, dates, spreadsheets, audio clips. The attorney selected a document. Immediately, a financial ledger filled the monitor. Rows and rows of transactions. Many matched records already introduced during trial. Others did not. The unfamiliar entries caused immediate concern. The forensic accountant leaned forward from the witness area. Even she appeared surprised. Ms. Green pointed to a highlighted section. "These transactions total approximately $412,000. The courtroom erupted. Judge Harrison slammed her gavel. "Order." The attorney continued. "These funds were not disclosed in previous financial statements." Kody's attorney stood. "Objection. We have not verified authenticity." "Which is why we're here," Judge Harrison replied. The objection was denied. Then came the audio files. The technician clicked the first recording. Static crackled through the courtroom speakers. A voice emerged. Male. Familiar. Every person in the room recognized it instantly. "Kody." The room froze. The recording quality was imperfect, but the words were unmistakable. "We can't let them see these accounts." A second voice replied. "What happens if they find them?" Kody's recorded answer sent a chill through the courtroom. "They won't." Silence followed. Absolute silence. No one moved. No one breathed. Even the reporters seemed stunned. Kody's face went pale. His attorney immediately objected. "Your Honor, we challenge the authenticity of this recording." Judge Harrison remained calm. That challenge will be considered. But the damage had already been done. The jury had heard it. The gallery had heard it. The media had heard it. And most importantly, Christine, Janelle, and Meri had heard it. Years of doubt suddenly felt different. Years of unanswered questions suddenly seemed less uncertain. The attorney introduced another file. Then another. Emails. Transfer authorizations. Account summaries. A pattern emerged. Not one mistake. Not one misunderstanding. A pattern. The judge reviewed the material carefully. Finally, she looked toward the plaintiffs. Do you have a witness prepared to testify regarding these records? MS. Green nodded. We do, Your Honor. The courtroom became still. This was it. The mystery witness. The anonymous source. The person everyone had been discussing for nearly 24 hours. Judge Harrison adjusted her glasses. Call your witness. The attorney turned toward the courtroom doors. The plaintiffs call Michael Turner. Every head turned. The doors opened. A man entered. Middle-aged. Professional. Confident. Kody's reaction was immediate. His face drained completely of color. Several people in the gallery noticed. The witness walked calmly toward the stand. His hands remained steady. His posture never wavered. After taking the oath, he sat down and faced the courtroom. The attorney approached. Please state your name and occupation. My name is Michael Turner. And your occupation? I was formerly a financial consultant. The word formerly hung in the air. The attorney continued. Were you acquainted with Kody Brown? Yes. How? Turner looked directly at Kody. For several long seconds, neither man looked away. Finally, he answered. I managed several of his financial entities. Gasps erupted throughout the courtroom. Judge Harrison restored order. The attorney continued. How long did you work with Mr. Brown? Approximately 6 years. And during those 6 years, did you observe financial activity relevant to this case? I did. The room fell silent once again. Turner opened a folder. Inside were copies of documents matching those found on the flash drive. These records are authentic. The words landed like a bomb. Kody stared at him in disbelief. Turner continued. I retained copies because I became increasingly uncomfortable with what I was seeing. Can you explain? Turner nodded. There were accounts that were never disclosed. The attorney allowed the statement to settle. There were transfers designed to avoid detection. Another pause. There were discussions about keeping certain family members unaware. The courtroom erupted once more. This time, even Judge Harrison looked stunned. The witness remained calm, professional, measured. He wasn't angry. He wasn't emotional, which somehow made his testimony even more powerful. The attorney asked the question everyone wanted answered. Why come forward now? Turner looked briefly toward Christine, Janelle, and Meri. Then toward the jury. Finally, he answered. Because the truth matters. The courtroom fell silent. Not a whisper. Not a movement. Only the sound of rain tapping faintly against the courthouse windows. For years, secrets had remained hidden. For years, questions had gone unanswered. Now someone from inside the system was speaking. And judging by Kody's expression, he knew exactly how dangerous that was. The attorney introduced additional records. Turner authenticated each one. Emails. Transfers. Account registrations. Meeting notes. Every document strengthened the case. Every answer pushed the trial closer toward a conclusion. Meanwhile, Kody sat motionless. The confidence he had displayed at the beginning of the trial was gone. The frustration was gone. Even the anger had disappeared. What remained was something much simpler. Fear. Real fear. Because for the first time, he could see the entire picture. Not from his perspective. Not from his attorney's perspective. But from the jury's. And it wasn't a picture he could easily explain away. As court recessed for lunch, reporters sprinted from the building. Breaking news alerts exploded across television networks. Former financial consultant testifies. Secret recordings introduced. Hidden accounts alleged. The trial had entered an entirely new phase. And everyone knew it. Back inside the nearly empty courtroom, Judge Harrison remained seated on the bench reviewing documents. The evidence pile had grown considerably. The witness testimony had become increasingly compelling. The questions facing the court were no longer whether secrets existed. The questions now centered on how many, and whether even larger revelations still remained hidden. Because as powerful as Michael Turner's testimony had been, one thing was becoming increasingly clear. He wasn't the final witness. He wasn't the last secret. And before this trial ended, someone else was waiting to speak. Someone whose testimony could change everything. Someone who knew exactly what happened behind closed doors. Someone who had remained silent for years. Until now.